Is Mr. Bay. And you are not solo. There are some. So you are good.
So, with your notice you gave, I can't talk about director of operations.
No, but you can meet with me afterwards to discuss any of your concerns.
So, to discuss a pattern I've noticed in meetings.
In the meetings? Sure. About commissioners?
That would coincide with the county director of operations.
Well, if you can direct it towards us and just give us feedback.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, I just got a couple of things. Perhaps kind of recommend your commission comment. Just not the ticket receipts, and they add to those every meeting I come. And I understand you hired $1 million last week.
Close, really close too.
Just curious what those funds are going to be used for. If they're dedicated or going to the general fund. Will we be expecting more? How's that working out? Was this a one-time offer? And the second gradable went down was that I've noticed in the meetings the lack of our director of operations, especially in the Amherst building. And it kind of seemed odd. We had executive sessions down here, and I don't see the director there. So I went down the rabbit hole, and I saw writing on the back of the mall in the Alex building. They said maybe Jed's not allowed there due to a conflict or something.
Well, so I
What's it now? That's fine.
I can 100%. So number one, no, he's 100% in the annex. He works in and out at all times. He obviously has oversee quite a few different areas. So no, there's no validity to that rumor. So I do want to just get that out there and squash that now. So I hope that helps. Yeah. And
Can I add to that?
certainly, but I also want to get to the forest thing too.
Yeah. Just to add on to that as well, we had a discussion with our legal counsel and / director of county operations, and something happened earlier in the year with our previous finance director, where when she was up here giving a report and attended a couple different meetings, it exposed her to direct attacks. And that wasn't right for us commissioners to expose our employees to that level. We're supposed to receive the attacks. We're not supposed to have county employees up here being the face and the center for potential attacks. So we discussed that with him, and we left that ball in his court. If he chose to attend, he obviously has the opportunity to have public attacks. And if he chooses not to, then he does not need to come here. But when we do have our questions and our director updates to call him in, then we can definitely do that as well. And that's the direction that he had chosen to go.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'll address the other part in comments.
Yeah, one more thing, Jeff. Yeah, for your method to the community, bringing in the truth. Thank you. Like, we know the Facebook and appreciate that. Having into bed.
Commissioner Bay, or no, Commissioner Bay. Andre Bay.
18.
Andre, so ONC, so yes, interestingly, so this year we received ONC payments. In the past, we've elected to take SRS. SRS is no longer coming through. So very fortunate that we have ONC coming. The ONC payment this year was just 940, 944 or 960. It was basically 9.5. what, I now, obviously, I can't speak on behalf of the budget committee, but I will provide some clarity on one thing. So our current staffing with PERS and annual increases, the normal annual increases that occur, step increases, I guess we call them. And it's estimated that 944 will cover exactly that so that we can maintain our current staffing levels. I believe the estimate on that was like 927 in increased staffing costs. So it really just created, it provided us the opportunity that we can continue to move forward as we have been, and those will offset all of our increase in staffing costs. Now, that may not be how the budget committee decides to utilize that funds, but it's really right there. One thing that should be noted is that with the removal of SRS funds, now keep in mind, in the past, in last year, we received $1.7 million in SRS funds. That was divided 75-25 between roads and schools. The roads received 75% of that and schools received 25%, and they divide the 25% based on student population in each district. That number is, we received some funding that counties have the ability to decipher how they want to disperse that. And it's just over $500,000. So it's not 1.7, right? So there are going to be some reductions in the amount going to schools should the board elect to divvy up the 500,000. It's going to be considerably less than it was last year that go to roads and schools. But the O&C goes to the general fund. So that's kind of the big change in this year's receipts that come in. What we can expect going forward is with the executive order by President Trump announcing the getting back into our logging, because currently we sell a lot of our logs to China and we buy a lot of our lumber from Canada. And we don't need to do either, right? We have the ability. The O&C lands are strategically placed right now to be what's called our strategic timber reserve, our national strategic timber reserve. It is what President Trump is, that executive order is directed at those lands. That's what those lands are designed for. And that's what we need to get back into doing. Now, a lot of people who have followed this over the years realize that initially our O&C lands provided what was called, we were supposed to be harvesting sustainable yield, and sustainable yield within the O&C lands is 1.2 billion board feet annually. Now, in the recent Pacific Northwest Forest Plan put together by BLM, they reduced the capacity within the O&C lands to be harvesting 20% of the available 100%, which turned 1.2 billion board feet annually into 140 to 240 million board feet. And so as we move into next year, I think what we will see with a new director of BLM and Secretary of the Interior is a substantial increase in those yields going forward, which in turn will create larger numbers of timber receipts coming into the county. So we haven't seen the fruits of that yet, but I think over specifically the next 3 years, we will. And once we get that ball rolling, then I think we will see it become more sustainable. One of the arguments that is put against us all the time that I'd like to just put out now that is not a true valid argument is that we do not have the capacity to handle that incoming lumber. And that is not true. With our current with our current lumber manufacturing companies, just in Southwest Oregon, we have the capacity to take on an additional 1 billion board feet. So that's been put out there by different environmental groups that we don't have the capacity, and that is simply not true. We do. And we need to get back to maximizing that capacity. So I know it's a long answer to your question, but I hope it helps give some.
I have a percentage on the yield. We're, if I'm not mistaken, is currently now set at 25%.
No, it's 50%.
It's 50%.
It's 50%. However, that is our newest litigation.
Okay.
So the original contract is 75% goes to the counties, 25% went back to BLM. In the 80s, the program was working so well that the ONC counties elected, no change in contract, elected to provide BLM with an additional 25%. Well, then they took that as policy. And so now we're going back into court to get it back to a 75-25 percentage split as originated by the contract. And we feel like we will be successful in doing so. And we may not even have to with the new administration. They may just honor that. So
Thank you for clarifying that. As I knew the answer, but I wanted you to
yeah.
to explain that because I knew you are on the ONC board. So thank you.